Alright students, this is the first walkthrough for SPSS. You may be wondering why we're starting in Google, and that's because I'm going to first show you how to get the data set that you need to complete your project for the semester. The easiest way to get to your course's website is to actually Google this physical imagination, and it would help if your instructor could spell. So the first link that comes up after all the ad-related stuff is going to actually be the website for Statistical Imagination. There's a lot of useful stuff. Here you'll find computer applications, which are other walkthroughs for SPSS out of your book. There's chapter extensions that have lots of good extra information that will reinforce what you're reading in your textbooks. And then there's what we're interested in today, which are the data sets and code books. What I've chosen for your assignment in SPSS this semester is the Homeless Persons 161 data set. It's a data set that was collected, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, using surveys with homeless individuals living in the Birmingham area. There's a lot of stuff that will be actually useful for social work folks, and I think you'll be able to actually do some things that you might actually be interested in for this. So when we go to the data sets file, you'll find that there's a whole list of data sets here. We want this one, Homeless Persons 161. You'll just right click and save it as normal. I've already saved it, so I'm not going to do that again. The second thing you'll want is the code book, and you'll see why in a minute, because the code book basically tells us everything we need to know about all the variables and the data itself. Okay, so you'll go to the code books tab and then download this PDF as well. I recommend saving everything in the same folder that's going to be related to your assignment. That way you'll be able to keep up with where it is. So once you've downloaded the code book and the data set, you'll want to go ahead and open SPSS. I like to open SPSS first instead of trying to open a file. Usually it works just fine, but sometimes things can get a little funky when you don't try to open things out of SPSS. So I started up SPSS. The first thing you'll see is this prompt that asks you if you want to open an existing data source. I usually just cancel out of that. You can certainly use it to find your data, but I prefer to do that using the file open. So once you go to file open, you'll select data, and then you'll go to the folder where you saved your data set. In my case, I saved everything I can to my Dropbox, and then statistics for social work, and then this folder here, and you'll see this Homeless Persons 161.save file, and that's what we want. So a couple of things happen when you open the file. The first thing you'll see is this output thing will come up. This output window is actually where all the results that you get from running your analysis will be. So anytime you do anything to the data using functions in SPSS, it's going to record the output here, and it's going to be really important later. But we'll come back to that. What we're interested in right now is the data set itself. And there's 2 tabs. There's the data view, which is what you would use if you were entering data. We're not. So we're not really interested in this. What we're interested in is the variable view, and that's going to give us a bunch of information about all the variables in this data set. You'll see a couple of columns, the first of which is name. This is the actual variable name. So when you're writing programs to do analyses on variables, these are going to be the names you refer to them with. For convenience, there are also variable labels, and that tells us what this variable is actually all about. So for example, the with kid 6 variable is actually based on the question, do your children stay with you? And then you can go on to this values tab and click on the cell and then this little button right here. And it will tell you that there are 2 different values for that variable. One is no, or rather 0 is no, and 1 is yes. And we'll talk about defining value labels later. But for now, all you need to know is that everything's stored as numeric data in SPSS. And so that we can keep up with what data means, labels for values will be connected to their values. So that's what you need to know. So there's some other stuff that's important. You'll see the level of measurement in this column. Scale can mean an interval or a ratio. Variable ordinal can mean, well, what it says, an ordinal variable, and nominal refers to nominal variables. And if you're reading along in your textbooks, you should know what those three kind of variables are. So we won't go over that too much here. The first thing I want to do with you guys today is we're going to just look through this data a little bit, make sure everything is input correctly, make sure nothing is standing out as being incorrect. The first thing you want to do, or what I usually do, is I look through the label columns and make sure that every variable is labeled so I know what they are. When you open your copy of this, you'll notice that there are a couple of cells missing. I've done this on purpose so that you can get used to looking through data and finding things that are missing. So let's say that the robbed18 variable is missing a label. This is not a big deal if we have the code book with us, and it just so happens we do. So you'll want your code book, and it'll be found hopefully in the same folder where you saved your data. And the code book is going to tell you everything about every variable in your data set. If you have a good code book, it'll tell you a little bit more than that. For example, a good code book will tell you what the sample size, or N, is for a data set. In this case, we have 161 homeless adults, hence homeless persons 161. It'll also tell you how the sample was gathered and a lot of other useful information. It'll also tell you what kinds of variables are in the data set. In this case, we have demographics, stuff about life crises, daily hassles, and crime victimization, and then some other things that are of interest to the people who collected this data. As social workers, you'll definitely be interested in the physical and mental health statuses of the homeless population that's the subject of this data set. And you might be interested in number 5, substance use, and other health risk variables as well. What we're really interested in today is making sure that variables are labeled, so we're going to skip down to the code book itself. And you'll see that there's a couple of things going on here. Every variable is listed by name and by number. The reason the number is at the end is that it makes it a lot easier to find variables when you're dealing with a lot of them. And I always recommend attaching a number to the end of your variable names so that you can find them quickly. So we want to look at the name, the label, which is the same thing we see in SPSS. It's going to tell you the measurement level, and if it's necessary, it'll tell you the value labels. So for example, for the variable Mary4, which is marital status, it'll tell you what the labels are for values 1 through 5, married, divorced, separated, widowed, and never married. We're not necessarily interested in that variable today. What we're interested in is fixing variables that don't have labels. And you'll have to look at your data set for these because I've already filled in most of them. But robbed18 is missing its variable label. So we'll look for the robbed18 variable so we can fix it. And this is why the numbers are really useful. We can see that we need to go to number 18. So robbed18 asks if the participant was robbed in the last 6 months. So what I want to do is I'm going to highlight that, right-click it, and copy it. And then I'm going to right-click and copy it directly into the field. I think this is just quicker than typing it, but you do whatever you want to. So that's the first thing I want you to make sure you do is fill in all of the variable labels in your data set. And then I want you to figure out if there are any value labels that are missing. And there's a really easy way to do this. We could go through and look at every variable and look at every value of every variable, but that is really tedious. So we're going to do something that's slightly less tedious. If we pull up the frequencies of all the variables in this data set, it will show us if there are any labels missing or any data that doesn't look right. Ooh, it's asking me about this, but I don't care. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this. And anyway, so we'll go to the Analyze tab. Under that, we'll go to Descriptive Statistics, and we'll go to Frequencies. So that's going to pull up a window where we can look up the frequencies for any number of variables. In our case, we want pretty much everything except interviewer ID. If we pull up this one, we're going to get a really long list we don't want. So starting with age, I'm going to pull up all the variables and select them over. And then I want to make sure that Display Frequency Tables is checked, and that's all I really care about for now. Later on, when we start talking about mean and mode and standard deviation, we'll want to use the Statistics button to kind of do all of that. But for now, we just care about the frequency tables. So when I click OK, it will give me all the frequencies. Now, the way I just ran the frequencies is called the point and click method. The other way to do this is to use syntax, which is what I like to do, and I'll tell you why. When you use a syntax to run programs, you can save a script and just run it over and over and over again. And because we're going to be building on your assignment throughout the course of these walkthroughs, I really think you should keep a script. So the easiest way to do that in SPSS is to go ahead and set up what you're doing. So in this case, all the variables are already set up to have frequencies run on them. And then click the Paste button. And that's going to conveniently create all the code you need to run this. It's really super convenient. So once you've done that, the first thing you want to do is save this script. Now, I cannot tell you how many times I have created really complicated scripts to do all kinds of great stuff, and then forgotten to save it and had to start all over and been really angry. So you need to save your script. Save it early and save it often. You also should name it something that will be easy to remember what you're doing. So instead of, I like to name all of my scripts after the data set that they apply to, and then also what they do. So in this case, Homeless Persons 161, SPSS Assignment 1 is pretty useful for us. So you'll save your script, and then you can select the part that you want to run. In this case, we only have one thing to run, and so we can do that. So I'm going to close this actually, and then we select this, and we run selection. Okay? And we get the same thing we would have gotten if we'd done it the other way. So now what you want to do is this slightly tedious task of scrolling through and making sure nothing looks out of place. You'll notice in the frequency that there are a couple of different types of values. You have valid values, which are all counts of valid values of a variable. You have total values, which is the total number of cases of a given variable. And you'll also have this category called missing, which is where the value of a variable is missing. In this case, the value don't know has been defined as missing. When that comes up, later we will deal with it more thoroughly. But for now, what you're going to do is just scroll through and make sure that there's nothing really out of place. And something that would be out of place would be if we had a variable that's just a yes or no question, and then there's maybe a 3 that has a frequency in that. And that usually means that somebody made a mistake inputting data, and it could actually screw up our analysis. And so you want to make sure that nothing like that's going on, that everything is labeled for variables that are nominal or ordinal and labeled correctly. Just a hint, I've already been through this a couple of times, and this data set is in good shape. So you'll do that and close, and then save this. Don't close it yet. You want to save your output because you're actually going to have to attach this to your assignment. And right now, this is just a frequency output for homeless persons 161. And I already saved a copy of it. I'm going to save it again. And I do want to replace it. So now we've done a couple of things. We've checked the data to make sure that it's labeled correctly. We've checked the variables to make sure they all have labels, and we've created the beginnings of our syntax for assignment 1 in SPSS. So that's great. Now, what I want you to do for the rest of your assignment is two things. One, I want you to use the frequencies procedure that we just ran through, and I want you to tell me the percentage of each racial group in this data set. So you're going to have to look through all of this and find race. Might want to use the code book to find it as well. And I want you to tell me what percentage of each race group is in this data set. And I actually want you to create a table for that. So that's the first thing. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to record in a document, this Word document, what changes you had to make to value labels or variable labels to fix this data set. And that's really just to check to make sure that you're actually doing this. So you'll do those two things, save them into your folder that you're already creating for your SPSS assignment. And then just save it for now. And you will keep building on this for the next couple of weeks. If you have any questions, just remember to email me or go back and just watch the video again and keep playing with SPSS. Thanks a bunch.